Hello, my name is Harry and this is Learn English with British Harry. Welcome to your 3-hour fluency masterclass. Today you're going to improve your fluency, your vocabulary and your listening skills. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, my name is Harry and I am a British English teacher. I have taught thousands of students from all over the world. To help with your learning, I have created an amazing ebook for you. You can find the link to download the ebook in the description and it's completely free. In today's lesson, we're going to look at another interesting article. So if we look at this here, the title says, "The real reason for the rise in male childlessness." So what is happening here? Let's have a look. So this suggests that men are having less children, okay? But what is the real reason? So this sounds quite interesting. It provokes some interest, some intrigue. So let's have a look here. When the US vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance made a comment about childless cat ladies, he evoked an image of educated, urbanite, career-minded women. So this could be seen to be an offensive stereotype about childless cat ladies. There's a stereotype about old women that haven't had children but having lots of cats. Now, then it goes on to say, but the picture of who is childless is changing. Recent research has found that it's more likely to be men who aren't able to have children even if they want them, in particular lower income men. A 2021 study in Norway found that the rate of male childlessness was 72% among the lowest 5% of earners, but only 11% among the highest earners, a gap that has widened by almost 20 percentage points over the previous 30 years. So 2021 is quite recent, so it's something that we should take note of. Seems quite recent, so it could be more reliable than a study that was done in the year 2000, for example. So 72% among the lowest 5%, but only 11% among the highest earner. Robin Hadley is one of those who wanted to have a child but struggled to do so. He didn't go to university and went on to become a technical photographer in a university lab based in Manchester. And by his 30s, he was desperate to be a dad. He was single at the time, having married and divorced in his 20s, and was struggling to pay his mortgage, leaving him with little disposable income. As he couldn't afford to go out much, dating was a challenge. When his friends and colleagues started to become fathers, he felt a sense of loss. Birthday cards for kids or collections for new babies, all that reminds you of what you're not and what you're expected to be. There's a pain associated with it, he says. His experience inspired him to write a book looking at why today more men like him who want to become fathers do not. While researching, he realized, as he puts it, he had been hit by all the things that affect fertility outcomes, economics, biology, timing of events, and relationship choice. He also observed that men without children were absent from most of the scholarship on aging and reproduction, as well as from national statistics. So this is quite interesting that this problem affected him enough to write a book about this. So he seems to be quite unlucky in life, where he was married but divorced. Now he is struggling to pay his mortgage, so he doesn't have much money left over to save for having a child, because having a child can be incredibly expensive. So he doesn't have enough money to save for becoming a father. Hadley has interviewed other men in Britain who are childless, not by choice. They also expressed sadness and loss and told him that there was something missing in their life. This week, figures from Office for National Statistics showed that births in England and Wales fell to an average of 1.44 births per woman, the lowest rate on record. The US birth rate is at a record low, while in 2022, China reported its first population decline in 60 years. So it seems that overall, people are having fewer and fewer children. Why could this be? Well, firstly, it could be because things are incredibly expensive. So that can affect people within Britain and the rest of the world. And maybe thinking about bringing up a child in the world and thinking about all the problems the world has, it doesn't seem to be as rosy if you compare life to the 70s or the 80s, for example. But this is always relative. It's dependent on which country you are in. In almost every country in the world, the proportion of people without children is growing. Statistics are gathered differently around the globe and are difficult to compare. But rates of childlessness are particularly high in East Asia at about 30%. In the UK, it's 18%. The rise of social infertility. For some, this is a choice. For others, it is the result of biological infertility, which affects 1 in 7 heterosexual couples in the UK. For many more like Robin, it's something else, a confluence of factors, which can include lack of resources, financial struggles, or failing to meet the right person at the right time. Some refer to this as social infertility. So we spoke about financial struggles, and this means a lack of resources. So you're not as attractive to a potential mate because you do not have enough resources. Is quite unfortunate, but that seems to be how the world works. If you have more resources, it means that you're potentially going to be a more successful father because you have more money to spend on the child. And also failing to meet the right person at the right time. This, I think about things like sliding doors. There's a famous movie called Sliding Doors. So meeting the person that you're going to be in a relationship with can be about timing. Sometimes it's the wrong time, and it can depend on a lot of factors lining up and luck. And so for some people, finding the right person can be incredibly difficult because he did meet someone, but then he was divorced in his 20s. So finding the right person can be more difficult, which is interesting because we have things like online dating, which makes it easier. It's more convenient for people to meet someone. Anna Rotkirch, a sociologist and demographer at Finland's Population Research Institute, has studied fertility intentions in Europe and Finland for more than 20 years. Okay, so she has some credibility there because she's done this for a long time, and argues that children may be at play, but something else may be at play too. She has noticed a profound shift in how we view children. So here, something else may be at play too. So this phrase means there may be another reason behind this. Like marriage, having a child was once seen as a cornerstone event. So a cornerstone event is a milestone event. It's something which is very important. If you think about in your own life, you have certain milestones: being born, becoming a teenager, turning 18, finishing education, entering the world of work, having a child, buying a house, buying your first car. So these things are cornerstone events, very important events. Something young people did as they embarked on adult life. Now, says Professor Rotkirch, it's seen as a capstone event. What do you do once other goals have been achieved? So that's quite interesting, that she suggests that before, having a child was just another thing you did. Now it's something which you do once you've done the other important things you want to do. Outside Asia, Finland has one of the highest rates of childlessness in the world. But in the 1990s and early 2000s, it was celebrated for battling declining fertility with world-leading child-friendly policies. Parental leave is generous there. Childcare is affordable, and men and women do have equal share of domestic work. So this is quite important. So having a child and having more than one child is expensive. But if you have more help from the government with more parental leave, and if childcare is affordable, that's something which would encourage more people to have more children. Since 2010, however, fertility rates in the country have declined by almost a third. That's quite interesting. People of all different classes seem to think that having a child is adding to the uncertainty in their life. Professor Rotkirch explains. In Finland, the wealthiest women are the least likely to end up childless involuntarily, whereas low-income men are the most likely. That's a big shift from the past. Historically, people from poorer families tended to transition to adulthood earlier. They left education, got jobs, and started families at a younger age. So here we can see she suggests that there's a shift, that people were having more children in the past when they were younger. Now people are having more children when they are older. Consequently, it means that people cannot have as many children if they start later in life. This trend is happening elsewhere in Europe too. Now it's actually the most disadvantaged people who are the least likely to start a family because they can't afford it, says Bernice Kuang, a demographer at the University of Southampton. When Dr. Kuang surveyed the fertility intentions of young people in the UK, she was surprised by the results. Twice as many 18 to 25-year-olds, that's 15%, now say they will never have children, compared with 15 years ago, which was 7 to 8%. Many more aren't sure. Of all of those yet to have children, more than half said they don't want to or aren't sure. That's a big change from previous generations, said Dr. Kuang. Those who responded negatively tended to be the most financially insecure, where young people felt they had a lower standard of living than their parents. They were less likely to want a child. It makes sense, says Dr. Kuang, when you consider that the average age of getting a first mortgage in the UK is the mid-30s and parents struggle to find affordable childcare. So this is a huge issue. In the past, many people were able to afford a house relatively young. They could have almost any type of job and save more money. And today it's incredibly difficult. So people are having to wait until their 30s to buy a house. If intentions don't change, it will be a big social change, she says. I'd be interested to see if the UK breaks records. The crisis of masculinity. For men, financial uncertainty has a compounding impact on involuntary childlessness. It has been called the selection effect by sociologists, where women tend to look for someone of the same social class or above when they choose a partner. I can see I was batting out of my league intellectually and in terms of confidence, says Robin Hadley. I think on reflection, selection effect could have been a factor. In his late 30s, he met his current wife. By the time they were talking about children, they were in their 40s and it was too late. But he says she helped him gain the confidence to go to university and get a PhD. I wouldn't be where I am now if it wasn't for her. Women are outperforming men in education in 70% of countries worldwide, leading to what Yale sociologist Marcia Inhorn has called the mating gap. In Europe, it means that men without a university degree are the group most likely to be childless. So this is quite interesting. So we have the selection effect, something that is common sense, that when you are looking to have children, you're looking at someone that has stability and able to be there for the child. But it's very interesting now that standards have increased. An invisible demographic. Like most countries, the UK doesn't have good data on male fertility because they only take the mother's fertility history when registering a birth. This means that childless men do not exist as a recognized category. Some Nordic countries, however, take both. The 2021 Norwegian study found that a substantial number of men were being left behind, arguing that childlessness is highest among the poorest men, and that this inequality in fertility has widened over time. According to its authors, while much is already known about female fertility, relatively little is known about male fertility. Men's role in declining birth rates is often overlooked, says Vincent Straub, who studies men's health at the University of Oxford. He's interested in the role of male malaise in fertility decline, the confusion felt by young men as women become empowered in society and expectations of manhood and masculinity change. So here, this word malaise, this means a feeling of discomfort and you don't really know what the cause is. So he says that many more men, in particular young men, are confused about their expectations of manhood. The same issues that are causing a crisis in masculinity are also disrupting relationship patterns. Finland has excellent data on partnerships outside of marriage, and what it shows concerns Professor Rotkirch. In the past, couples would move in together, have a child, get married, and have another child. Now couples who live together will break up more often. As well as the corrosive effects of screen time on relationships and the pressure of competing careers, there's also a divergence in how couples see their roles in relationship. We're seeing differences in the expectations of men and women. So this is quite interesting, where she says that men and women are confused about their roles. However, I think that it's only normal for people that have more opportunities to want to explore those opportunities. If you have more career opportunities, for example. Here, let's carry on. So gender roles are deterring women. Martha Bow is in her 30s and lives in Shanghai, where she works in human resources. She is part of a rapidly growing group of young Chinese women saying no to parenthood. In 2019, 4.5% of people under 30 in China didn't want children. 2 years later, that number has more than doubled to 9.5%. These statistics don't differentiate between men and women, but Martha says most of her female friends don't want a child, while all of the men do. It's not a surprise, she says, when the burden of looking after children in China is so squarely placed on mothers. I think to raise a child means taking on a lot of responsibilities, and I don't want to take them on. I want to be free, she explains. So that's quite interesting, where she says if she has a child, it will mean more responsibility for herself. So I can see how partners that have more education or more resources are more appealing because they can share the burden or share the difficulties of having a child. So now, what can be done? Another reason for declining birth rates, Straub and Hadley point out, may be the fact that the conversation on fertility focuses almost totally on women. Any policies designed to tackle it are missing half the picture. Straub believes we should focus on fertility as a men's health issue and discuss the benefits of caregiving to fathers. Only 1 in 100 men in the EU pause their career to look after a child. For women, it's 1 in 3, he says. That's despite mountains of evidence that nurturing a child is good for men's health. So that's quite interesting. So 1 in 100 men in the EU pause their career. So if men want to have a child, should they pause their career to spend more time and then give more time for their partner to pursue their career? We need better data, says Robin Hadley. Until we record men's fertility, we can't fully understand it or the effect it has on their physical and mental health. And the invisibility of men in fertility discussions extends beyond records. While there's more awareness now that young women need to think about their fertility, it's not a conversation being had among young men. Men also have a biological clock, says Hadley, pointing to research showing that sperm declines in efficacy after 35. This word efficacy means the ability to produce something, to produce the desired result. And that this is something he thinks more young men need to understand. So a biological clock. So biologically, it will be more difficult for a man to have children as he gets older. So I think there's more knowledge and understanding about this when it comes to women having a biological clock, but there's not enough discussion about men's biological clock. So making this invisible group visible is one way of tackling social infertility. And another could be to extend the definition of parenting. All of the researchers who commented on childlessness were keen to point out that people without children still have a vital part to play in raising them. It's called alloparenting by behavioral ecologists, explains Anna Rotkirch. For much of our evolution, a baby had more than a dozen caregivers. So there's a famous saying that it takes a village to raise a child. Do you think this is true? If you think about the people in your life that helped to raise you, uncles, aunties, friends, for example, if you have more people to help, it's much easier to raise a child, and it can be more fulfilling for that child to have a lot of strong relationships with other people. But in today's society, that's becoming less and less, as people are starting to migrate and move away from each other. One of the childless men that Dr. Hadley spoke to in his research described a family he met regularly at his local football club. For a school project, the two young boys needed a grandparent, but they had none. He stepped in as their surrogate grandfather for 3 years, and after that, they saw him at football, they would say, "Hi, Grandad." It felt wonderful to be acknowledged in that way, he said. I think most childless people actually are involved in this kind of care. It's just invisible, says Professor Rotkirch. That's not seen in the birth registers, but it's really important. So she makes a very important point here, that when you have a child, you need that support network. And if it isn't immediate family, it could be the community, it could be access to childcare groups, to information, to educational resources. So as a society, the government, the council, the community can help to raise children together. But this is a very interesting article, encourages people to talk about how men want to have children, and maybe some men want to pause their career, but they don't feel like they can say that because it may take away from their masculinity. So if you think about the old-fashioned stereotypes that your masculinity is based on how far you have progressed in your career, how much money you have made, how much education you have, rather than looking at the qualities of being a good parent, of being a loving and a caring parent. So let me know, what did you think of this article? I thought it was quite interesting. Do you have any children? Do you want to have any children, or do you not want to have any children? What are the reasons for both? Thank you so much for watching. You did an excellent job. Hello, my name is Harry, and welcome to the Learn English with British Harry podcast. These podcasts are designed for you to be immersed in English. What does it mean to be immersed in English? Well, literally to surround yourself with English. The more that you can be exposed to English, interact with English, the easier and more enjoyable it will be to improve your English. So how are you today? I hope you're well. Today is the last day of 2024, and I can't believe it. The year has flown by, but it feels like that every year, that the time just goes by extremely quickly, and we are heading into 2025. So I hope everyone is well. Now, thinking about 2025, how will you improve your speaking and your general English? Well, I have 3 tips for you to improve your English in 2025. The first tip is to overcome your fear of speaking. Now, this is only natural, especially as adults. We can become scared of making mistakes. We don't want to feel embarrassed because as an adult, you've had to do a lot of things already in your life, and you've worked really hard to improve those skills. And when you're having to learn a new skill or do something new, it's extremely difficult to accept that you're going to have lots of failures along the way. But I think reframing failure as not failing but growing. So each time you make a mistake, be proud of yourself, because you're improving, you're moving forward, you're allowing your brain to assimilate the information and make the connections. So whether it's new vocabulary, grammar, or an idiom or a phrase, when you hear this, you can try to reinforce that learning. I'm a firm believer in active learning, because once you learn a vocabulary word, it's really nice to use that in your daily life. So to help you to overcome the fear of speaking, try to make small talk with yourself. So for example, when you are making dinner, talk to yourself. You can talk out loud, which is really beneficial, or you can talk in your head. Describe the actions that you are doing. If you are chopping up an onion, if you are cutting a tomato, if you are frying some eggs. So narrate your activity. This is really useful. And along the way, you will find that you can start to have a conversation with yourself. So maybe I should dice the tomato smaller, or maybe I should cut the onion larger. This way, it's a bit more fun and it reinforces the learning. At first, it will be a bit strange, especially if people are listening to you thinking, what's this guy talking about? So it's very helpful to start talking to yourself. I think it's really good. You can also plan your day. Describe your plan for your day, especially when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. I find these moments have been really beneficial for my students because it's a quiet time of the day. You're just lying in bed, and it's really useful, especially before you go to sleep. As you start to think about, okay, tomorrow I will go to the gym at 6 o'clock in the morning. I might do exercise my shoulders and my arms. I think I will have a smoothie when I come home from the gym. I have these tasks to do. So it's really beneficial. And then in the morning, you can reinforce that. So today, this morning, I have to do X, Y, and Z. In the afternoon, I have to meet my friend for a coffee, for example. Now, another thing you can do to overcome your fear of speaking is to record yourself. This is really beneficial. You can set up the camera or just turn on the voice recording on your phone or your laptop and do the same thing. Narrate your day and listen back. And at first, you may feel a sense of cringe listening to your voice, but the more that you do it, the better you will become, because you will hear a certain pronunciation or a certain grammatical error, and you can start to pick up on that. And even if you don't, that's fine, because the more that you do this, the more that you're making your learning interactive. It's not passive, it's more interactive. And remember, when you're speaking a language, everyone makes mistakes, small mistakes all of the time. It's more about the message that you're trying to convey. Can you articulate your thoughts? This is the main aim of improving your English, is to get to a point where you feel comfortable with expressing yourself and you become more coherent. So coherence is when an idea logically flows into another idea. And remember, it's not a linear experience. So when you're describing something, you can go off into lots of tangents, but then you can combine this information together. And that's why learning a language is so fun, because you can express yourself, you can make connections with other people. And the more that you overcome the fear of speaking, the more enjoyable it is. It actually becomes very creative. Number 2 is to immerse yourself in English. To really improve your English, immerse yourself, try to be surrounded by English. Watch British TV shows, YouTube videos, songs, even on your phone. You can change the language settings to English. And this way it forces you to be surrounded by English, reading newspaper articles as well every day. So when you get into the habit of being surrounded by English, it starts to seep into your head via osmosis. So osmosis is when something filters slowly from where there's a lot of something to where there is a little amount of something. So this information will start to seep into your brain. Listening to these podcasts is a fantastic way to immerse yourself in English, whether you are at the gym, doing some housework, or just pottering around the house, and you listen to these podcasts, you're hearing some new vocabulary words, you're hearing the stress on certain words and the rhythm of speech. So immersing yourself is a fantastic way to improve your English. The third way to improve your English in 2025 is to write. Now, I find that writing has almost become old-fashioned now. I'm guilty of that myself. I hardly write, although I do try to keep a journal. And especially when I started my fitness journey, I wrote down everything that I was eating. And this really was a brilliant exercise to take accountability. So having a notebook and a pen, writing down your daily activities, your daily routines. You can also write your goals, your dreams, your aspirations. You can even take it one step further and write short stories. And just the act of using a pen and writing is brilliant. Now, you can also write online, social media posts. I encourage you to write in the comments to let me know how you are. How is your day going? What have you done today? So these are very good to, again, reinforce the learning. So when you have written something down and you look at the words, you think, wow, I wrote those words. Now, that can add to a sense of pressure, because when you are writing, you have many attempts at looking at it and trying to find the perfect word. This is why keeping a private journal is so good, because you allow yourself to overcome that fear of making mistakes. So you can just write about anything. And I think it's a really good way, another active way to improve your English. So as you can see, the theme for improving your English in 2025 is to be more active. When you watch some of my videos, watch them a few times, write down the vocabulary words, and try to use them in your day-to-day life. Even if you're talking with yourself, it's really, really beneficial. So I hope those tips have helped you. Now, as we go into 2025, it feels like another year, but this year will be positive. I really believe that when you have good intentions, when you have a strong belief that you can make this year a brilliant year, it will become a brilliant year. I remember when I was younger and I read this book called The Luck Factor. And this psychologist, he followed people for many years to find out if they were really lucky. And he discovered that luck was due to having more opportunities. Now, you can create more opportunities by having new experiences and improving your learning. In a sense, you can create your own luck. So I believe that when a situation gets difficult, and if you have a belief that this year is going to be fantastic, then you will find a way to circumvent, to go around, to go through that particular obstacle. You don't let anything hold you back because you have a strong belief. And I really believe that you can improve your English. Just keep working hard, have belief in yourself, keep immersing yourself in English, and make it fun and enjoyable. Having a goal is important as well. If you think about the benefits of learning English, it allows you to have more career opportunities. even educational opportunities. It it gave me a sense of freedom. And that's what learning English does. It gives you a sense of freedom, because with the car, now I could go anywhere that I wanted to. I didn't have to rely on someone for a lift. I didn't have to take public transport and wait for the bus. Now I could take control. It's the same thing with English. As you become more proficient in English, you'll have more opportunities, more career opportunities. You can travel wherever you want to, and you won't have that fear. So just keep practicing, and I know you will improve. So last time we had a look at the first part of the quiz, and today we're going to look at part 2. So part 2 covers April to June in 2024. So the first question is, tens of millions of people in North America watched day turn to night in April as a solar eclipse cut its way across Mexico, the US, and Canada, which was the first US state to experience totality: Arizona, New Mexico, or Texas? So this is a complete guess. I will go for Texas. Let's have a look. Okay, and Texas it is. 5 horses belonging to the Army's household cavalry caused chaos in London as they ran through the city centre, colliding with several vehicles, including a double-decker bus. The animals threw off their riders after being spooked by what noise? So being spooked is when you are scared by something. This is an informal word. So these things seem to be quite commonplace. If there's a horse in London, I'm sure they've heard a lot of these things. A vehicle backfiring is less common, I think, but then we have gunfire, which is also less common. So let's go for gunfire. Oh, building work. It must have been some extremely loud building work for the horses to be spooked. Caitlin Clark's record-breaking college basketball career came to a close with her defeat in her final game before turning professional. Clark scored more than 3,900 points in her time, more than any college athlete in history. Whose record did she break? LeBron James, Pete Maravich, Kelsey Plum. I think I missed this story, so this is going to be another complete guess. I'll go with LeBron James, because LeBron, I've heard of the name LeBron. Let's see if this is correct. No, it's Pete Maravich. The Scottish National Party's Humza Yousaf resigned as the First Minister of Scotland after little more than a year in the post. His departure followed the collapse of a power-sharing deal with which party? Scottish Greens, Scottish Labour, Scottish Liberal Democrats. I'm going to show my lack of Scottish political knowledge here. I will go with, let's see here, power-sharing deal. So power sharing, I think about the environment. So we have Greens, something green. Let's try Scottish Greens. Okay, so that was a bit logical. It was Scottish Greens. Switzerland's Nemo won the Eurovision Song Contest in the Swedish city of Malmö in May with their entry The Code. Which country's entry was disqualified from the grand final after an alleged backstage altercation? So an altercation here is something happened backstage. It could have been an argument, it could have been something physical, or an argument. So something happened. Okay, so was it Ireland, Israel, or Netherlands? I will go with Netherlands, and it is Netherlands. Okay, so here the singer was removed just hours before the grand final after an alleged altercation with a camera woman, which he denied. Okay, let's go to the next one. Donald Trump became the first former or sitting US president to be convicted in a criminal trial as he was found guilty of breaking election law. What crime did prosecutors say he committed? Conspiring to overturn the 2020 presidential election result in Georgia, disguising hush money as legal expenses, exaggerating the value of his business. So he was guilty of breaking election law. I think any one of these here could be the answer. Conspiring to overturn. Let's have a look. Disguising hush money. Okay. So hush money is something which is paid to keep another person quiet. So it's quite an interesting story. Next up, question 7. Zendaya, Nicki Minaj, and Barry Cogan were among the big names to dazzle on the red carpet at the annual Met Gala in New York. The dress code was the Garden of Time, which celebrity accessorized their outfit with a rose in a block of ice? Camila Cabello, Ariana Grande, Katy Perry. Well, I've heard of these two, Ariana Grande and Katy Perry. I will go with Katy Perry. Oh no, Camila Cabello. That's a new name. So she's a singer-songwriter. Question 8. An American football star caused an outcry by telling female college graduates one of the most important roles in life would be a homemaker, as well as criticizing abortion and LGBT pride. For which NFL team does Harrison Butker play? Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, Tennessee Titans. I'm showing my complete lack of knowledge here, and I'll go with Dallas Cowboys. No, Kansas City Chiefs. The UK's largest new indoor entertainment arena suffered a very bumpy start. Resignations, falling debris, and concerts cancelled at the last minute delayed the opening of Co-op Live in Manchester, which pop act had been due to open the UK leg of their world tour here. Olivia Rodrigo, Bruce Springsteen, Taylor Swift. So here we have this a nice word here, resignation. So when you resign is when you voluntarily leave your job. It's different to being sacked or being fired, which is the employer's decision. If you resign, it's the employee's decision. Falling debris. So debris are bits of material that are falling. So this could, in my head, I'm imagining falling debris from the ceiling. So it implies that the building was not built to a good standard. Okay, so I will go with Taylor Swift. No, Olivia Rodrigo. Okay. Tributes were paid to broadcaster Dr. Michael Mosley, who died after going missing while on holiday in June. In which country had Dr. Mosley and his wife been staying? France, Greece, or Italy? I remember this was a very big story. And Dr. Michael Mosley, he was one of an important figure in promoting intermittent fasting. He was in a lot of BBC documentaries about it. I think this is Greece. So in Greece, so this was quite a big story at that time because it was incredibly hot in Greece. So that's a very sad story there. More than 200,000 music fans gathered at Glastonbury Festival to see sets from Coldplay, Shania Twain, Little Sims, Dua Lipa, and many more. After a rumoured Sunday evening set by Madonna fell through, which star headlined the last night? Doja Cat, Janella Monáe, SZA. So here to see sets. So sets, this means a collection of songs. So for example, Coldplay would play their favorite sets, or not necessarily their favorite sets, but the songs that are incredibly popular with other people. Let's try SZA, and it is, even though I'm not sure who SZA is, but now I know. Question 12. Former Mexico City Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum was elected Mexico's first female president in a historic landslide win. What was her profession before politics? Businesswoman, energy scientist, or lawyer? Okay, this is a complete shot in the dark. I'll say lawyer. Energy scientist. So she studied physics before gaining a doctorate in energy engineering. Question 13. Astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore saw an 8-day trip to the International Space Station turn into a much longer stay after their spacecraft was found to have big problems after launch. Which part of the Boeing Starliner had a fault? Heat shield, radiators, or thrusters? Now, I do remember this particular story, and I do know that their return back to Earth was delayed, but I can't remember the actual fault. I would say possibly thrusters. Okay, now I was thinking thrusters because they are the part of the space shuttle which would propel them forward, give them energy and momentum to travel towards Earth. So let's have a look at my score here. 7 out of 13. So I'm in the Spaceballs category. Okay. So let me know what your score was. That quiz, I think, honestly was quite difficult. But what stories do you remember from the year? I think around the world we have the numerous wars going on. I think those stories dominated the news headlines. But I think AI really took a step forward this year, which was really interesting to see. I think on a personal note, I'm an avid Arsenal supporter. I don't know if you like sports, but I love football and I love supporting Arsenal. I've supported them for over 30 years. And this season has been a bit of a strange season because Manchester City have had a big dip. Now, Manchester City, they've dominated the Premier League. They've had a vast amount of money to be able to spend to buy the best players. Not only the best players, but the best players for the positions. So they've had excellent backup, whereas other teams have been on bare bones. Bare bones is just to have the basic amount. So you can have the bare bones in terms of the players in the team, or you can have, for example, bare bones. I traveled across Europe with the bare bones. So I just had the essentials, the things that I needed in my backpack. Whereas Arsenal, yes, they have had some money to spend, and it's a bit of an anticlimax because the last 2 seasons they became title contenders after a long period of time of not doing well and suffering. And if you're a football fan, you know that suffering and being happy when your team wins goes hand in hand. And it's been surprising because Liverpool have just done an amazing job, even when their manager has left, who was iconic, who had managed Liverpool for many, many years, and he decided to leave. And I thought, right, this is an opportunity for Arsenal to capitalize, but it wasn't the case because the new manager that's come into Liverpool has just galvanized the squad. He's brought everyone together and they're playing better than they were under the old manager who revolutionized the club. So it's very surprising and a bit disheartening because I thought Arsenal had a chance. So that would be quite interesting to see what happens with that next year. Thanks for watching so far. I hope you found the tips on how to improve your English useful and the quiz informative, if not challenging. I found it quite challenging. So where are you watching from is quite interesting for me to know where are you from as we go into 2025. I think this will be a fantastic year. I think this will be a brilliant year. I think this will be the year for overcoming obstacles, for making your dreams a reality or building the pathway. I'm a firm believer in the compounding effect. And that is when you want to improve, you think about improving each day. And there will be obstacles in your way. There may be self-talk in your way. But I think it's really important to keep believing, being positive, knowing what your goals are, what your targets are. And that way you can develop a really good routine. And so it's only natural. You're going to have some days when you're not going to be motivated. And for example, learning English is going to be the last thing you're thinking about. But incorporating it into your life, being immersed in English and being immersed in any hobby or activity or something that you really want to improve, I think is the best way to actually make your dreams a reality. Just taking a sip of coffee there. So thank you so much for watching. This year has been amazing. Thank you so much to everyone for watching these videos, for liking, for commenting, for subscribing, for sharing. I appreciate it so much and I'm eternally grateful. So let's keep moving forward and make this year the best year. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Happy New Year, and bye-bye. Hello, my name is Harry, and this is the Learn English with British Harry podcast. I have taught thousands of students, and these type of podcasts have really helped to improve my students' English. This podcast is designed to help you to be immersed in English. What does it mean to be immersed? Well, to be surrounded by English. And today I have a very interesting article for us to go through. The article here says why Swedes don't speak to strangers. In Sweden, casual chattiness is seen as needless since conversation is used for exchanging real, meaningful information. So this is quite interesting. We have some interesting words here. Casual chattiness. This means informal and light-hearted conversation, often without a specific purpose. For example, in many cultures, casual chattiness is common in coffee shops and public spaces. So this says in Sweden, having light-hearted or quick conversation is seen as needless, that it's not very important because they believe that conversation is used for exchanging or talking about important things. In many cultures, striking up a conversation with a stranger is the norm and could even lead to a budding friendship, but not for Swedes. So here, starting up. This is an interesting phrasal verb. This means starting, and it's often used with conversations or relationships. For example, she struck up a conversation with a stranger on the train. We have this word budding. Budding means to develop a friendship or career or a talent. So, for example, their budding friendship grew over time. So, in many cultures, striking up a conversation, initiating, starting a conversation is quite normal. If you're in a shop or in a public space and you start to make conversation with someone, it's seen as quite normal. But in some cultures, it's not. Now, in the UK, depending on where you are, it can be normal or it can be a bit strange. In London, for example, which is very busy, it can be a bit strange for people to strike up a conversation. But personally, I have really improved in that aspect. And I think it's really nice to strike up a conversation with a stranger, just to simply ask them, hello, how are you? But in some cultures, people can be a bit isolated and it can be a bit strange for them to strike up a conversation. Here, small talk is seen as futile and is referred to as kalprat, cold talk, or dodprat, dead talk. To avoid ending up in these situations, many Swedes have made an art of avoiding eye contact with strangers and acquaintances they might come across in the street by looking at their phones or staring at shop windows instead. So here, this word futile. Futile means pointless or incapable of producing any useful result. For example, his efforts to persuade her were futile. She had already made up her mind. So, pointless. So here, small talk is seen as pointless. I think it's quite funny here where they mentioned it's an art of avoiding eye contact by looking at their phones. And this is very common. I've experienced this many, many times. Now that I quite enjoy making small talk because I think it's really nice to acknowledge the other person's presence. Basically, we are all in the same boat. We're all human. We're trying to make our way through life. And it's quite nice to initiate a conversation with a stranger. So when I get into a lift, for example, or an elevator in America, so when I get onto a lift, I like to make eye contact and say hello, and I look for clues to initiate conversation. So for example, if someone is carrying some shopping bags, I would ask them if they found any good deals today. Or a general question could be, how is your day going? Or the weather has been fantastic today. Or if you're in the UK generally, the weather is terrible today. So you're offering an olive branch for someone to initiate a conversation. And often, even if you're not in the mood to have a conversation, just having those small interactions and positive interactions during the day can make you feel better. But many people look at their phones and scrolling through their phones or looking at the shop windows to try and avoid eye contact. So for Swedes, the purpose of talking is to exchange meaningful information, and engaging in purposeless chit-chat simply hasn't been valued until now. So chit-chat. Chit-chat is light, informal conversation about unimportant topics. For example, the party was filled with guests engaged in small talk and chit-chat. For the past 4 weeks, Luleå, the 80,000 person capital of Sweden's northernmost county, has been encouraging residents to greet one another as part of an official campaign aptly called Sage Hedge, say hello. The city is located so far north that residents see as little as 3 hours of sunlight in the dead of winter. Wow. Which may contribute to their reputation of being reserved. In fact, people in Luleå are known to speak so little to one another that the word yes is often replaced with a sharp intake of breath. Officials are therefore hoping the campaign may help lift the mood of locals, especially those who may feel lonely. So we have this word aptly. Aptly means in a way that is appropriate or suitable for the circumstances. For example, the campaign was aptly named Say Hello because of its focus on encouraging greetings. So it's specific, it's particularly appropriate. Now, here, so they say especially those who may feel lonely. Now, some people may not feel lonely. Some people may feel okay. They may feel very happy. So some people may genuinely not like making small talk. They don't feel lonely. They feel okay. But this campaign is designed to encourage people. Saying hello to your neighbors is a small thing, but research shows that it can contribute to social bonds and have a positive impact on health, safety, and well-being, wrote city officials. Beyond Luleå, visitors to Sweden who attempt to start an informal conversation with a shopkeeper or waiter, even with the local greeting of hedge, are likely to be met with a flat hedge in response, often with a subtext of faint irritation or mistrust. Experts say this reserve could be due to Sweden being a sparsely populated country in a relatively vast landscape, whereby for hundreds of years people grew accustomed to rarely speaking with those outside their immediate circle. Subtext here means the implicit or underlying message or meaning behind spoken words or actions. For example, his polite words carried a subtext of frustration. So this is very common, especially in the UK. So people will come across as being polite, but there is a subtext, there's an underlying message of frustration, but they won't just come out and say, I am frustrated. So this can lead to not expressing your emotions, and it can lead to a lot of frustration building up. Now, so the research shows that saying hello can contribute to social bonds. So as simple as saying hello, because it makes you feel connected and part of the world, which is interesting because we have things like the internet, we have social media, and these things have made us more connected than ever before, but some people still feel isolated and lonely because I think you need that real interaction in person. Being behind a screen is completely different. You miss out on body language, the tone of the voice. So it's very interesting and important to say hello in person. So this can contribute to social bonds and have a positive impact on health. So I think it can lower your stress, can lower your cortisol levels, make you feel better, so improving your well-being, feeling good. Okay, so another hypothesis is that this aversion to chit-chat could be linked to relatively low levels of immigration to Sweden until the 1960s. Minimal exposure to other cultures historically meant that Swedes were less likely to take up this decidedly un-Swedish practice. Here, this word aversion means a strong dislike or unwillingness to do something. For example, she has a strong aversion to public speaking. So it's something that you really don't like to do. or you're very unwilling to do. So it could be because of fear. For example, in this case, public speaking. It's a big fear for many people, being in a position where you have to speak to many people and you're the focal point. So let's carry on here. Yet, despite their seemingly cool exterior, Swedish people will almost always be polite and friendly, albeit simply in a different way to those from talkative cultures. In a country that reveres simplicity and practicality, it's best not to talk without a reason. So here, cool exterior. This means an outward appearance of calmness, detachment, or emotional reserve. For example, despite her cool exterior, she was deeply affected by the news. So from the outside, it looks like a person is very calm. They may seem detached, but they seem in control of their emotions. Reveres. This means to hold in deep respect or admiration. For example, in a country that reveres. So here, for example, in a country that reveres simplicity and practicality. So this means that Sweden greatly values simplicity and practicality. Something that you think is very important. So for them, this is something which they think is extremely important. So simplicity and practicality. So that was the article with some key vocabulary words. Now, if we go back to the top, now we can analyze and go through certain aspects in depth. So, is this unique to Sweden? Can you let me know, where are you from? And what is the culture with small talk? Firstly, do people make small talk, or do they not make small talk? And what do you think about small talk? Why is small talk important? In the article, they talk about social bonds, having a greater sense of well-being. Do you think that's the case? How does it make you feel when you make small talk? Do you feel better? It would be interesting to know. It's also interesting to think about the type of small talk. And like learning English, it always depends on the context. Some people may not want to make small talk. When do you think a person wouldn't want to make small talk? I would assume when a person is having a bad day. Maybe they've had something traumatic happen in their life. So when you try to make small talk and it doesn't work, I don't think you should take it personally. For example, if you try to say hello and how are you, and you get ignored, or you see a sour face from another person, don't take it personally, because you don't know if something tragic has happened in that person's life and they don't want to talk about it, or they just may simply not be in the mood. But I don't think this should stop you from trying. I remember when I went into a bakery at a busy train station, and the person at the counter, before I paid or handed the money over for the sandwich, I asked the person, hello, I said, hello, how are you? And he just started to laugh. And I was confused. Why are you laughing? And he said to me that I was the first person to ask him that question. And at this point, it was 5 p.m. So he started work about 8 a.m. So throughout the whole day, no one had asked him how he was. They were simply paying for whatever they were wanting to buy. And in this way, a lot of social interaction has become transactional. When you go to a shop, it's just to buy something and then you leave. and the interactions you have with people is only transactional. So you'll only speak with people that you know or at work. But by just communicating with a stranger and asking them, how are you? How is your day going? It really meant a lot for him, and it made him feel better. It made him feel recognized that he was there, he existed. He wasn't just there to take your order, but he was there as a human being. So he felt really good. So small talk goes beyond, I think, the fear. Sometimes people may have a fear of initiating a conversation because they don't know if they'll get shut down. They don't know if the other person will be responsive or even wants to talk. But sometimes in life, you have to take the initiative. You have to be first. And it can be a ripple effect, because once that other person says hello back and you initiate a conversation, they may carry that on to the next person. And I think in terms of quality of life, what is your quality of life like day to day? And small things like this can improve your quality of life, because we all have stresses in life. We have to pay the bills, we have family problems, we may have health problems, but we are all human. We are in the same boat. And having this feeling, I think, is amazing. I think when you can make that connection with people, it makes you feel better about the day, because you're not in your own bubble. You're not thinking inside yourself all the time. You're thinking about the world outside of yourself. And an interesting point here is that they say that it may be due to the levels of immigration. So until the 1960s, immigration to Sweden was relatively low. Now it's started to pick up. So that could be another important point, that having diversity is important. When you live in an area which is diverse and you have exposure to other people, other cultures, I think it's wonderful, because it takes you outside of your bubble. And many people feel comfortable in their routine and not going outside of their comfort zone, because you know what to expect. Life is comfortable. You know who you're going to talk to, what you're going to talk about. But when you're exposed to new cultures, it may challenge your beliefs, your ideas. You can have more exposure to how different people think and talk, and I think it's really good. So are you from Sweden, or from a country which doesn't make small talk or casual, or have casual chattiness? Let me know. And just to remind you, I have created a fantastic ebook. It contains 5 brilliant tips to help you to improve your English straight away. It's completely free, and you will find a link to it in my description. If you want to improve your small talk, I recommend watching this video next. It has some brilliant tips to help you to improve your small talk. Today, I'm afraid I'm going to ramble a bit today. I thought it would be a nice idea to have a look back at the year that is 2024 before we go into 2025. So in today's lesson, I apologize beforehand that I'm going to ramble a bit, but I thought it would be good to look back. I have a few bullet points. So a lot of this lesson is off the cuff. When you talk off the cuff, you think of ideas on the spot and you try to connect your thoughts together. So if we look back at the year 2024, on a global scale, we've seen a lot of things happening in the news. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming. I'm not sure about you, but sometimes I try to stay away from the news because it can be extremely depressing. But I do like to be informed and to keep informed about the current events. And my hope for the future is that a lot of these things will be resolved. Apart from that, I think personally this year has been good. I've embarked on a fitness journey. I'm 42 and I feel that in my 30s, I've neglected my health somewhat. And this has happened, and it happens quite naturally. When you get married and you have children, you have less time to think about yourself, and you have the dad bod. So your weight starts to increase gradually over time. And I think in my 40s now, I've started to get a few aches and pains. I think for me, what was the breaking point was when my knee started to click. I went to tie my shoelaces and I had a click in my knee, and I thought to myself, okay, no. For the future, I really want to be fit and mobile. So for the last few months, I've been taking the gym a bit more seriously, adding in stretching and mobility exercises. In my 20s, I used to exercise a lot more, and I was able to enjoy going out, clubbing, raving, seeing friends, being able to eat rubbish food, but I could always exercise and lose the weight very quickly. But as I've aged, I found it more difficult to lose that weight. And I think really taking stock of my lifestyle has really helped. So initially, I bought a very small notebook and I wrote down everything that I consumed. I could have done this on my phone, but I feel sometimes it's really nice to write down. And I feel that a lot of people lose that connection because everything is so digital. You can make notes on your phone, on your laptop. There are so many productivity apps. But I think just getting a piece of paper and a pen and just writing is a very cathartic experience. It enables you to get your thoughts out onto paper and to physically see it. I think there's a better mind-body connection when you write things down. And from that, I did that for a whole week, and then I saw exactly what I was putting into my body, because I was able to see, okay, I'm eating too late in the evening, and so I changed some of my habits. If I started to feel hungry, one of my go-to snacks is a rice cake with peanut butter on top. It doesn't sound very glamorous, but I made that connection in my head that when I felt my stomach expand, I felt full. And also trying to hydrate, drinking a lot more water. So I carry a water bottle wherever I go, and I take pride in making sure that I've hydrated and I'm drinking enough water. So on the health-wise, looking back at the year, I feel that I've started to make progress with that. And initially, I felt good, I felt motivated, I was getting the dopamine hit in my brain because I was progressing. But then you hit a plateau. Now, a plateau is when things stabilize. So you make a change, a new habit, you're progressing upwards, but then it levels out and you don't start to see much progress. So you start to question yourself. But I think it's just a compounding effect. And I think you can apply this to any part of your life. If it's learning English, it takes time. So learning new vocabulary, improving on your grammar, improving on your fluency and your listening skills, you are getting one step closer to improving your English. And this goes with everything in life, that it's about having that patience. And they say patience is a virtue. So it's something which is very good. And in today's society, it can be difficult to be patient when we live in a world where it's much more instant. We have news that breaks straight away, and you see this on Twitter or now X, and you're able to have entertainment wherever you go. You can just pull out your phone and you can entertain yourself. I remember back in the day, growing up, we only had 4 TV channels. So we were forced to watch whatever was on TV. And if there was a TV show that was boring, there was nothing you could do about it. You'd have to go and read a book or go and entertain yourself. Sometimes I would force myself to watch the Antiques Roadshow, which was a show about people bringing in their old antiques, and they're evaluated by other people. And sometimes you would find people be extremely surprised if they had a rare coin or a rare teacup, and the expert said this is worth £1,000. But that was my show, which was, okay, this is far too boring. I need to go and do something else. But today you can just change. You have a plethora of TV programs, video games to entertain yourself non-stop. And it's interesting because whenever you have one aspect, you have the opposite aspect. So you have a lot of people talking about meditation, being mindful, having a digital detox. And some people go to extreme lengths. For example, putting their phone in a box which has a code, and you set a timer, and you can only use your phone after a certain set time. So I think it's really interesting where we live in a day and age where we have so much information, so many sources of entertainment, but we have to learn to control ourselves. And sometimes being old school and going back to how humans entertain themselves through storytelling and spending time with other people can actually make you feel better overall, and it makes your quality of life better. Continuing this YouTube channel this year has been incredibly rewarding. It's been interesting, it's been difficult at times, but it's been wonderful being able to create these lessons, to provide value, and to help you to really improve your English. So it's been really, really interesting. It's been difficult at times because it's only natural as human beings to compare yourself to others, to wonder why your videos aren't getting more views compared to others, and comparing yourself. I think it's only natural. But I think that being positive and having a strong belief that you can achieve the things that you want to, I think is really important. Now, I think there are times where being positive is not enough. So in life, you have things like implicit bias. So people will be biased more towards a certain style or person or appearance. And I think in these times, it's really important to believe in yourself, to really think positively and to make things happen. Now, it may mean that you may have to work harder than other people, but that's okay. I think just believing in yourself and being positive is really, really important. And I think if you think this way, you can overcome any obstacle. I think there's truth in the compounding effect. If you try to focus on what you can control and don't worry about what you can't, I think this leads to a greater sense of mental health and well-being. So this way, you can focus on, for example, with your health. You can focus on regularly exercising. If you can't get to the gym, focus on walking, doing body weight exercises in terms of your diet and nutrition. If you can't focus on reducing stress at work, for example, you can focus on trying to eat healthier, which will make you feel better. Me personally, for example, with this YouTube channel, I try not to focus so much on how other people are doing and just going for it and believing that you can. And this is something that you can control. So if you have a difficult situation in life and you focus on taking the small steps and not being afraid of failure, I think failure is such a wonderful thing. If I connect this with learning a language, when you're a child, it's much easier to learn a language because children are not afraid of failure. They will make mistakes all the time and it's accepted. But as adults, we often feel that if we fail, it's an indicator of how we are as a person, that we are a failure. But this is not true. Making mistakes is so important, and being able to recognize those mistakes and then slowly starting to improve. Success in life is not a straight line going up. You're going to go backwards, you're going to have dips, you're going to increase and then go backwards and down. But then eventually it's a compounding effect. Over time, each vocabulary word that you learn and practice reinforces your learning. I can relate that to this YouTube channel. I feel that every video, every lesson that I make, I keep getting better and better, hopefully. And I learn from the mistakes. It's very important also not to compare your journey with another person. And it can feel frustrating at times. You can see other people improving very quickly or being recognized. But I feel that, believe in yourself. Have faith in yourself. And keep chipping away. Because you are wonderful. Being alive now is wonderful. We have already succeeded, I feel. So do what you love. And in times when it gets difficult, it's really nice to have a routine and a schedule. So, for example, first thing in the morning, to review some vocabulary words before your day starts and life gets in the way. This is often what I like to do with exercise. I like to exercise as early as I can to get it out of the way, because life gets busy and you forget about it and you have so many things to do. And by the evening, it's very easy to stop thinking about exercise because you're tired by this point, and you can justify not doing something because you've had a very difficult day. It's the same thing with having just healthy food in the house. So if I don't have any junk food in the house, I wouldn't eat it. So I think surrounding yourself with positivity is really important. And these lessons, these podcasts are here for you to immerse yourself in English. Now, what does immerse mean? Immerse is when you are surrounded by it. So if you can surround yourself with English, listening to these podcasts when you're going for a walk, when you're going to the gym, when you're doing housework, and listening to English, being surrounded by English, reading English, it starts to change your mindset. And you not only do you pick up on vocabulary and grammar, but also the rhythm of speech. And then you can start to mimic that, you can start to copy that and incorporate that into your life. So I think positivity and overcoming obstacles is a way to lead a fulfilling life and to have a greater sense of mental health. And regularly checking in on yourself and having positive self-talk, I think, is really important. Because sometimes thinking positive is not enough. You can think positive. You can say, okay, I believe I can get a Ferrari or whatever you want, but then it doesn't materialize. So in these times, it's to really focus on what brings you joy, what brings you a sense of calmness, focus on that, and keep building step by step by step, and work on your positive self-talk, which is extremely important. So looking forward to next year, and I can't believe it's 2025. It's amazing. I think as you get older, sometimes the years kind of blend in together. But I think it's an interesting year. I think the year and the future looks extremely positive. I think things like AI is going to change the world. I think it already has. It's changed the way people learn and consume information, and it's only going to get better and become more intuitive and integrate into people's lives in the future. I thought it would be quite fun to have a look at a quiz here for 2024. So this is for the first few months of this year. I keep saying last year, of this year, 2024. So in January, Amal Rajan, the host of BBC Two's University Challenge, found himself going viral on social media after he told the team, "I can't accept drum and bass. What kind of music did he say he needed?" Drill, drum step, jungle. Okay, I haven't heard of drill, so it's either drum step or jungle. I feel drum step is a bit more modern, and I think I'll go for jungle because it's a bit older. Let's have a look here. And okay, correct. Let's go to the next question. Queen Margaret II, the longest-serving monarch in Europe, surprised her country by announcing her abdication in a New Year TV address. Of which country was she queen? Belgium, Denmark, Netherlands. I'm going to take a wild guess here, and I'll say Denmark. Okay, well, I'm on a roll. Glastonbury Festival founder Michael Eavis and best-selling writer Jilly Cooper were among those recognized in the 2024 New Year Honours list. Who was the youngest recipient of an honour on this year's list? Jill Gladwell, Tony Hudgell, Rizwan Javed. I don't have a clue. I don't have the foggiest idea. I'll go for Tony Hudgell. Okay. Okay, that was a random guess. Let's go to the next question. An American teenager achieved internet fame when he became the first human believed to have beaten a classic video game. Which game was it? Angry Birds, Donkey Kong, or Tetris? Now, Angry Birds is a bit more modern. I've played this game. It's incredibly addictive, and I had to delete it from my phone. Donkey Kong or Tetris? So these are two older video games. Tetris, I think, is older than Donkey Kong. And Tetris is actually one of the first games that I played. I had a Game Boy, and I used to love Tetris. It's an amazingly addictive game. Okay, and Tetris it is. Arina Sabalenka won tennis's Australian Open women's singles title for the second year in a row, beating Zheng Qinwen of China in straight sets. I apologize for the pronunciation up front. Who was the previous woman to retain the Australian title? Victoria Azarenka, Naomi Osaka, Serena Williams. The only tennis player I'm familiar with is Serena Williams. Let's try it. No, it is Victoria Azarenka. Tributes were paid to broadcaster Steve Wright, who died in February after more than 4 decades on BBC Radio. Which of these shows did he not regularly present during his time on Radio 1 and Radio 2? Pick of the Pops, Radio 2 Breakfast Show, Sunday Love Songs. I will go for Sunday Love Songs. Oh no, after my initial success, I'm on the decline, but don't give up, let's be positive. Okay, Taylor Swift stole the show at this year's Grammy Awards, becoming the first performer to win Album of the Year 4 times. But who beat her to the coveted Song of the Year award? Miley Cyrus, Billie Eilish, SZA. Now, I'm going to be showing my age here. The only person I really know, I think, is Miley Cyrus. But I've heard Billie Eilish. I've seen this name more in pop culture and the news. So I'm going to go for Billie Eilish. And yes, okay, I'm back. A dog walker in northern England risked losing a finger to pull an invasive species of reptile thousands of miles from home from a lake. What name was given to the alligator snapping turtle? Fluffy, Spike, Spiny Norman. Go for Spike because the turtle looks spiky. Fluffy. Doesn't look quite fluffy, but sometimes it's nice to name a pet an endearing term. So it is Fluffy. King Charles III thanked the nation for the messages of support sent to him following news he had been treated for cancer. Among some 7,000 cards he received, what was printed on one said by palace aides to have particularly amused the king. At least you don't have to wear a cone. Laughter is the second best medicine. Red wine is the best. Whatever you do, don't Google it. So again, this is a shot in the dark. I'll go for whatever you do, don't Google it. No. At least you don't have to wear a cone is the correct answer. Barbie may have won the box office, but Oppenheimer dominated the Oscars in March, as Christopher Nolan's film took home 7 gold statuettes. But which star almost stole the show after they suffered a wardrobe malfunction while accepting their award? John Cena, Da'Vine Joy Randolph, Emma Stone. I will go with Emma Stone. Okay, yes, well done to the people playing along. If you got the answer correct. 6 people died when a cargo ship crashed into a major bridge over the Patapisco River in the U.S. port of Baltimore. After which artist was the ship named? Leonardo da Vinci, Salvador Dali, Michelangelo. I think Salvador Dali, perhaps? Okay. That was the correct answer. Donald Trump saw off challengers to secure the Republican Party nomination for the 2024 election. Who was the only opponent to defeat the former president in any of the primaries held to decide the candidate? I think so. We have Chris Christie, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley. I will go for Chris Christie. Nikki Haley. Okay. The last question for this segment. British runner Jasmine Paris made history by becoming the first woman to finish one of the world's hardest ultra marathons. In which US state are the grueling Barkley Marathons held? Arkansas, Georgia, Tennessee. This is a complete guess. I will go with Tennessee. And Tennessee it is. I generally find with multiple choice questions that if you're not sure, I'd go for C. So well done. That was part 1. And we will try part 2 in the next podcast. Now, looking forward to the year ahead, do you have any New Year's resolutions? I find that New Year's resolutions don't really work for myself. I used to make them when I was much younger, and I think it's much better to think in terms of goals that you want. What do you want to achieve this year? It would be really interesting to know. Is there anything specific that you want? I think having a target is a good thing. This helps you to keep track of your progress. So let me know, what plans do you have? What goals do you have for this year? As always, thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you and bye-bye. Let's have a look at this here. So this is about a person called Kirat Asi. Now, if we read the title here, I'm not stupid, I've chosen to speak, says catfish victim duped for 9 years. So there's an interesting word, catfish. What does catfish mean? Well, catfish means to deceive someone on purpose online, usually to have a fake identity. And I think this was much more common in the past, before we had social media. So you had things like chat rooms, and if you're speaking to someone and they gave you information about themselves, they may be lying. But today, with social media, you can fact check and see if this person actually exists. So it's quite interesting to hear about someone being catfished. Then we have the word duped. So she was misled for 9 years. That's quite a long time. So whenever I see a number, I always encourage my students to think about deduction. What does the number tell you? Firstly, is it a high number? Is it a low number? Well, when we're thinking about age, it's relative, because 9 years, if you're living until 100, 9 years could be relatively low, but still it's quite a fair chunk of your life. It's almost a decade, it's almost 10 years. So that's an incredibly long time to be misled and to be catfished. So it's quite an interesting article. It's something which provokes and sparks some interest. I'm not sure about you, but I love watching thrillers, and I like finding out who the person is and trying to connect the clues and connecting the dots. So this is quite interesting. So how was this person able to be duped or conned for 9 years, which is a very long time? So let's have a look at the article here. It all started with a friend request. Kirat Asi thought she had hit the jackpot when Bobby, a handsome cardiologist, got in touch with her in 2009. So this is quite a nice phrase. She hit the jackpot. So when someone plays the lottery, they are hoping to win money. And if they have the winning numbers, they've hit the jackpot. They've won an enormous prize, an incredible prize. So she thought she had hit the jackpot, and naturally you would be extremely happy about that. And it gives some description. So a handsome cardiologist. Okay, he wasn't a total stranger. The pair were both from West London's Sikh community and had friends in common. This is quite interesting, because he was not a complete stranger. So they had friends in common. So already I can see how she was able to be catfished, because there's an element of trust there when you have friends in common. So it wasn't a complete stranger. So Kirat accepted, and her online chats developed into deeper conversations before blossoming into a full-on love story. So blossoming here, if we think about flowers that start to blossom, they start off as small buds and then they start to grow bigger and bigger and then they fully bloom. So this is something quite romantic. It's like a romantic story that the love story starts to brew slowly and then gains momentum. The two became more and more entangled in each other's lives, but they never met, even after years of correspondence. Bobby would provide increasingly outlandish excuses. He had a stroke. He'd been shot. He had entered witness protection. So outlandish, these aren't normal excuses like I have the flu or I had family problems. These are excuses which are quite elaborate. So he'd been shot. He'd had a stroke. That seems understandable. But to have a succession of these quite dramatic events seems a little bit suspicious. And here, the tall tales. So if you say a tall tale, it's a story which is suspicious. There are red flags in the story, and it's a little bit suspicious. The tall tales, though, were always backed up by someone close to Bobby, also Kirat thought. So that's interesting. So there's an element of trust because the friends that they have in common were able to validate his stories. So I can see how she would trust this story, even if it is extremely outlandish. In truth, she was the victim of a wildly elaborate and traumatizing catfishing scheme. After 9 years, when the excuses ran thin, Kirat finally came face to face with Bobby. So the excuses ran thin. So it's when the excuses start to become less and less believable. So he could say he had a stroke, but if he says he had a stroke 5 times, or if he entered witness protection 10 times, someone would naturally start to suspect, hey, something is fishy here, something is a bit dodgy, it doesn't sound quite right. So she's beginning to suspect things. So Kirat finally came face to face with Bobby, but she didn't recognize the person in front of her. The person she'd been messaging was her female cousin Simran, who had been the brains behind everything. So when you are the brains behind something, you are the person creating the plans. So if we think about big companies, we have things like Tesla, and people think the brains behind that is Elon Musk. It's the same with other big companies like Apple or Google. So the brains behind someone is the person with the intelligence to deceive someone or to do something. Looking back now, Kirat asks herself, how could you have been so stupid? Kirat's shocking story was a hit for podcast maker Tortoise in 2021. Now, 3 years on, Netflix has recently released a documentary which features her recounting her experience. So we can see now that this story was so outlandish, so crazy, so interesting that Netflix heard about it and created a documentary about it. She says that telling her story has prompted others to ask the same question. How can somebody fall for that? It also prompted abuse from some people online. So when you prompt something, is to encourage something. For people who might still think I'm stupid, that's fine. You're allowed your opinion, she tells BBC Asian Network News. But Kirat says people shouldn't make assumptions, and countering these was partly what prompted her to tell her story. But Kirat says people shouldn't make assumptions. So she says, I'm not stupid, I'm not dumb, I'm the one that's chosen to speak. I'm the one that's put myself out in the firing line, and I hope others will come forward, she says. So to put yourself in the firing line, this is to put yourself in a vulnerable position. And it's not something that is easy to do. For example, if you're at work or at school or in a position where people are doing or saying the wrong thing, do you speak up about it? It could cause you to lose your job, maybe. And if it does, you'll have to go through a long appeal process. It could cause people to dislike you. And in today's society, being shunned by people is one of the worst things that people can imagine. If we go back thousands of years to times when we were cavemen, to be punished would mean to be ostracized from the group, to be banished from the group, because that meant death. Because now you had to fend for yourself in nature, you'd have to find food and clothing, and you wouldn't have support from other people. So when you're out in the firing line, you have to be incredibly brave and to know that what you are saying is correct and you're telling the truth. Which prompts another question. Why would someone who's been duped in this way put themselves in the public eye? Well, I think she's answered that right there, that she's chosen to speak so that other people are aware that these things do exist. Then she says, we have responsibilities towards our community. Kirat, who's from a Punjabi background, says speaking out was important because she wanted to challenge stigmas in the South Asian community. When someone has a stigma, this is usually negative. They have a stereotype about someone. For example, if we think about mental health, there can be a stigma with some people to talk about mental health, particularly in the South Asian community, because families are quite close together and people are worried about how it affects their reputation or how people view them if someone has mental illness, for example. So then she says, we are so scared to open up about these issues, she says, because of how a community will be seen by a wider society. The victims in our communities keep suffering. This is quite interesting because she is exposing and trying to encourage people to think about these issues. Kirat says her dad's reaction to her story is a good example of what she means. He doesn't want to know what happened, she says. Why is that? Why is he burying his head in the sand? Why doesn't he want to know what happened? Because to face up to what happened and how horrific it was, it's going to be painful. I love my dad and I know my dad loves me, she says, adding, it's a different set of values that he has been brought up with. So this is quite interesting, that she is almost in a way condoning what her dad's reaction is, because Yes, he may have a different set of values, but he's still not acknowledging what happened. So I think sometimes to talk about difficult things, to accept that it's painful, is something which is really powerful and very beneficial. Kirit says she hasn't spoken directly to the real Bobby about what happened, and puts this down to the community's reluctance to have difficult conversations. She wonders if her experience would have been the same if she'd come from another background. I'd be making different decisions, she says, because we have responsibilities towards our community. You have the pressure of family. So this can be very interesting because this can cause people to get into situations that are very difficult when this is life. These things happen. And I think being open about it, it takes away the other person's power. If people can look at what happened and accept that this wasn't Kirit's fault, but hey, we should support her. But we can see how within the community, there is a lot of pressure. I don't carry the victim mentality. Despite some negative reactions to the retellings of Sweet Bobby, Kirit says she would rather deal with questions up front. If you do see me, don't be scared to approach me, she says. And if you want to say something which might be controversial to me, it's okay. Let's have a discussion about it, she says. When Kirit's asked if speaking to a podcast or documentary producers has given a sense of closure, she's less certain. So to have a sense of closure is to feel mentally well. When you have closure, if you think about when you've read a book and you've closed the book, that's it. It's finished. And when you have closure, you've experienced acceptance. For example, when you have a breakup, a relationship, you have closure when you've accepted that the relationship is over. It can be the same way when someone has passed away and you have closure at the funeral, or you could have closure in your own way, maybe having a personal goodbye to someone. So she's not too sure that making the documentary has given her a sense of closure. Simran rejected offers to be involved in the documentary where she's played by an actress. Kirit successfully brought civil action against her cousin, receiving compensation and an apology at the end of the case. A statement from Simran included in the show says, "This matter involves events that began when she was a schoolgirl. She considers it a private matter and strongly objects to what she has described as numerous unfounded and damaging accusations." Kirit says Simran hasn't faced any criminal charges and wants her to be held accountable. "I'm not okay with that person being out there," says Kirit. There's another question that she's no closer to answering: why? Kirit doesn't think she will ever truly find out what drove the campaign against her. "I think I've long given up," she says. "The extent to which that person went, you can't ever justify it. I can't understand why you didn't stop. What gave you pleasure from hearing somebody in pain?" But not having answers is not stopping her from moving forward in life, including dating again. "I'm working really hard, harder than I should have to right now to rebuild my life and career," she says. "I don't carry the victim mentality around with me. I don't want to be that person." So a victim mentality is when you believe everything is my fault. And it can be something which a lot of people can have. For example, you may not have had the best childhood or relationships or opportunities, And you may be justified in saying my life is terrible because this and this happened. And at some point you have to think about, how can I turn this around? So rather than being the victim, you're not ignoring what happened, but you are mentally strong. So you're saying, hey, I can overcome these things. I'm going to carry on working towards goals and dreams. So this was quite an interesting article, an interesting story. I would love to hear your thoughts on this article. So it's nice to think about some questions first. Now, some questions we could ask are, for example, catfish. Have you ever been catfished before? Have you known any stories about people that have been catfished? Now, this person in particular, how was she able to be catfished for such a long time? So it went on for 9 years. So she didn't meet this person for 9 years. Now, you may think initially that's a crazy amount of time, but as we've gone through, she trusted this person because they had close friends. And this is how social media works. If you think about information that you get, if someone sends you a story, a very close friend, you're more inclined to trust them than to go and fact check. So it's understandable, but the length of time and also the person that was doing the catfishing, why were they doing this? What was their incentive? Was it to cause pain? Was it boredom? Was it to see how far things can go? And it makes you question why someone would want to cause pain to another person. It's quite disturbing if you think about it. And it opens up other questions about the community, about being able to talk about things that are painful. But I think it's excellent that she is talking about this, she's being open about this, and I think the community will be forced to change and adopt new cultural values and understand that these things do happen, but by giving support, raising awareness, there is no shame in this. There's actually power in this because we are all human, we are all in the same boat, trying to experience life, trying to live a happy and fulfilling life. And if someone can talk about their problems openly, the community can work together to help and overcome these problems. So I think this is quite a fascinating story. So I hope you found this interesting. How is your new year going so far? It feels like the year is going by so quickly, but this seems to be the case every year. It feels like just yesterday it was New Year's Eve and time is flying. Now, I really love movies. I'm not sure about you, but I used to be a movie buff, which means to really enjoy movies and be knowledgeable about them. When I was younger, I had much more time to watch movies. Today, I have less time, but I thought it would be nice to have a look at IMDb's top 250 movies of all time. Okay, so number 1, we have Shawshank Redemption. Have you seen this movie? I think it's a brilliant movie. I remember the first time I watched it, I had so many emotions. By the end of the movie, I felt inspired and motivated. And also remember, let's tick off how many movies we have seen. So I have my pen and some paper here. So number one, yes, I've seen. I think it's a brilliant movie. I'm not sure that I would give it first place. I'm not sure if I'd give it the top spot, but nevertheless, it's a very good movie. It was made in 1994. Wow, that's an incredibly long time ago now. Makes me feel very old. If you haven't, I recommend watching it. Then we have The Godfather. This is an absolute classic. I think personally I would promote that to higher, maybe to the first, and we'll go through the rest as well. But The Godfather was a very good movie. There is a lot of drama in the movie, and it keeps you captivated throughout the movie. You're so engrossed in the story. I think a lot of movies today, especially with Marvel and superhero movies, which are also very good, but I feel like there lacks a story at times. Now, this could be bias because I am biased towards the classic movies. Then we have The Dark Knight. This was a brilliant movie. The atmosphere it created, and even though it's a superhero movie, it almost felt real because the character, Batman's character, was given much more depth. And along the movie, you were taken along with his journey. And so you really identified with his struggles. So the first three I've ticked. Then we have The Godfather Part 2. I personally feel this movie was better than the original. And sometimes it's rare, it's very rare for a sequel to be better than the first movie. Often you have a movie that's really successful and then the movie studio just wants to capitalize and make as much money as possible. So they just pump out sequel after sequel after sequel. I can think about the Fast and Furious, for example, where they have, I'm not sure where they are now, I think Fast and Furious 10. So this movie was a piece of art and it really developed the story. So that is 4, let me tick that. 12 Angry Men. I haven't watched this. So this was made in 1957 and it is at number 5. So looking at it, I can justify spending time watching this because it has a high rating. Not only does it have a high rating, but it's been rated highly by 904,000 people. So 904,000 people have taken their time to rate this as a high movie. So it's making me feel like maybe I should watch this. Number 6, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Yes, I have watched this. I think it's a very good movie. I think the Lord of the Rings trilogy was a really good movie. I think in terms of the action, the story, the special effects as well. In particular, Gollum's character. This really catapulted the actor's career because Gollum's character added more depth to the movie. Then Schindler's List. Yes, I have seen this. This is a classic movie created by Steven Spielberg, who is a legendary director. Pulp Fiction. Yes, I have seen this. This is an iconic movie, which has been embedded into pop culture So pop culture is popular culture. It's things that many people know about. So this is a very good movie with a good director. Then we have The Lord of the Rings, another part. So 2 of The Lord of the Rings have made it into the top 10. So again, this is giving me the impression that this is a good movie. If I haven't seen it, this is good promotion and good encouragement to really watch the movies, because 2 of the movies have made it into the top 10. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. It rings a bell. So when I say it rings a bell, it's something which I am familiar with, but I'm not 100% sure that I have watched this. Forrest Gump. Yes, this is a classic movie, and again, it's a piece of art in describing and narrating a story. And I think it was so interesting because you see the characters' development in different periods in history. So it was quite interesting and something that hadn't been done before. And we have another Lord of the Rings at number 12. Wow. Number 13, we have Fight Club. And this is a brilliant movie. It's a movie which was groundbreaking at the time because it has such a unique story, and it has twists and turns, and you're not sure what is going to happen, and you're trying to figure out the story as you go. Okay, then we have Inception. Now, Inception at times, I remember a lot of people were confused about this movie, but the visual effects were outstanding. I was astonished by the special effects, and the story was on the edge of your seat stuff. So you were so engrossed, so invested, you wanted to know what happened with the story, and has very good actors as well, with Leonardo DiCaprio. 15, we have Star Wars. This is a classic, and yes, I really enjoyed Star Wars. It's a classic. It's an ultimate classic of good versus evil. And even though we've had lots of Star Wars movies after this, I don't think they managed to capture the magic of the original Star Wars, especially if you were of that era and watching the movie at that time. I think it must have been amazing. Now, special effects have progressed tremendously, but in terms of the story, it was fantastic. Now, number 16, The Matrix. This arguably would be my number 1. I think this is a fantastic movie. I think I watched this movie like 3 times in the cinema. I had the cassette tapes, the VHS tapes. I had the DVD box set. I was obsessed with this movie, and it even encouraged me to get into martial arts. I remember trying to do the same moves as Neo's character. So they combine a lot of different styles into the movie. One of my favorite aspects was the music. The music was fantastic. There's a guy called Rob Dugan. If you haven't listened to his music, check out some of his songs on YouTube. They evoke so much emotion. So he mixes his voice with some classical and modern music and combines it really well. And I liked how it matched the action in the movie. And I think this is actually a timeless movie. I've seen some clips recently, and it's made me feel like I want to go back and rewatch the movie because it still feels fresh, and especially with the special effects and things like bullet time, it really propelled the movie industry in terms of thinking about what is possible when you're making a movie. So this is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. Goodfellas, this is a really good gangster movie, really good actors, again, a very good story, brilliant acting. So this is a very good movie. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This is one I haven't seen, so I can add that to the list. Interstellar. This is one of my favorite movies of all time because I'm fascinated with space. I like science fiction movies. There's a very good story. The special effects, again, are amazing. And even though it's science fiction, it tries to be grounded in some science. So the story feels like it could be possible. It's plausible that this could be true. 7. This is a thriller, which is a classic movie. It's a Wonderful Life. I haven't seen. 7 Samurai. This rings a bell. I think I have seen some of this, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'll leave that off the list. The Silence of the Lambs. This is a really good movie. So this is a classic, so that's one I've seen. Saving Private Ryan, yes. City of God, yes, I have seen quite some time ago. The Green Mile, yes. It has similar aspects to The Shawshank Redemption in that it's set in a prison. Very good acting. Life is Beautiful, no. That's one to add to the list to watch. Terminator 2. Yes. It's quite interesting to see Terminator 2 before the original Terminator. So this was the sequel was judged to be better than the original. And it's subjective. What do you think if you've seen these movies? What do you prefer, the first or the second? I personally prefer the second because it just has more elements in the story. It builds on the first movie and just takes it to another level and just knocks it out of the park. Another Star Wars, yes. Back to the Future, yes. This is one of the ultimate family movies, I think. It's a feel-good movie. It's something that you can watch with children, young people, old people. It has common themes of adventure, overcoming difficulties, finding yourself. It's a coming-of-age story. So the main character grows along the movie. Spirited Away, I have heard of this movie. I think I've seen clips, but I haven't watched the whole movie. The Pianist, this rings a bell, but I'm not entirely sure. Gladiator, yes. I remember watching this movie and just feeling blown away. It's just an epic movie. If I had to use the word epic, this is such an epic movie. It's on a grand scale. It's on a big stage. The emotions feel amped up and amplified. The stakes are high. The journey that they take you on in the movie is amazing, coupled with the music. I know they've made a sequel to the movie, but which I haven't watched, but I don't think they can recapture the magic of the original. Parasite, yes. This was a really good movie, a really good story. Psycho, I haven't seen. The Lion King, yes. I think this is one of the best animations of all time. And it's not just the animation that makes the movie good, it's the emotions that make the movie good. Because when they tried to remake this movie, they didn't capture the emotions of the animals. So the emotions of the animals with the music just make this an absolute classic movie. The Departed, yes. It's a very good movie. Grave of the Fireflies, no. Whiplash, no, although I have heard of this movie. And I remember sometimes it can be off-putting when you hear about a movie that you should watch. And I felt that I should watch this movie because it's getting so much praise. But I didn't feel in the right mood to watch this movie. So I'll put it on the list of movies to watch. American History X. Yes. This is a very powerful movie. Spider-Man. Yes, in terms of animation, it's one of the best animated movies I've watched. It's a visual treat for your eyes. The Prestige. Yes, brilliant acting. Harakiri, no. Leon, yes. This is such a brilliant movie. This is a type of movie where your life stops. If you're having any stress or worries and you're watching the movie, you just completely forget about your life and you're so engrossed in the movie, and then it's so sad when the movie's over. So this is really good. Casablanca, yes. This was shown many times on BBC. This is a complete classic movie. Takes you to a different time, different place. It's quite nostalgic. The Usual Suspects, yes. This is a very good, unexpected movie. Don't want to give any spoilers, but if you haven't watched it, watch this movie. It's a slow burner, but it keeps you captivated, and you are trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out what happened. Untouchable, I haven't seen. Cinema Paradiso, yes. I have a bit of a soft spot for this movie. I remember watching this when I was very young, and it's a coming of age story, and I identified to this movie. And it just feels magical. It's one of those movies where it touches your heart and you can just get lost in the movie and you can really relate to the characters. Modern Times, no. Wow, it was made in 1936. Alien, yes. This is a classic science fiction horror movie. They also made many sequels, but they didn't quite capture the magic, the essence of the first movie. Rear Window, no. Once Upon a Time in the West, no. Dune Part 2, no, although I have watched the first one. Django Unchained, I've seen bits, but not the full movie. City Lights, No. Apocalypse Now, yes. This is quite an intense movie, and you have to be in the right mood to watch it. I remember there was a lot of backstory to this movie about the production, that it took very long to make, and making this movie was very intense, and the movie is very intense. But in terms of a war movie, it is a classic movie. Memento. This, I would say, also is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a thriller. It keeps you guessing throughout the movie, and again, you're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. It's not really a movie you can watch and not concentrate. So as opposed to a superhero movie where you don't really have to concentrate on the story so much, this movie you do. But it's very rewarding, personally rewarding, when you're watching the movie and you're paying attention to the details. Wall-E, yes, this is a very cute movie. It's a family movie, has a lot of very cute animations, and I like how they tied the emotions. So much like The Lion King, where the animation, it takes second stage to the emotion you're trying to create. And I think that's the best way to create a movie, rather than concentrating on the visual aspect and not really paying attention to the emotions. It doesn't really work. But if you can have two together, that's fantastic. Raiders of the Lost Ark, yes, classic, also a family movie. The Lives of Others, no. Avengers Infinity War, yes. I liked how they brought all of the characters together. Sunset Boulevard, no. 12th Fail, no. That seems quite interesting. So it's a 2023 movie. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I don't think I have watched this, but I watched the original. Paths of Glory, no. Witness for Prosecution, no. The Shining, yes. This is a classic horror movie. The Great Dictator, no. Aliens, yes. So the sequel made it in. Inglorious, no. The Dark Knight Rises, yes. Coco, I don't think I've watched the entire movie, but I've watched parts of it. Amadeus rings a bell, but no. Toy Story, yes. Old Boy, yes. Really brilliant movie. Again, you're trying to figure out what's happening in the movie, so you can't really switch off. You have to keep focused. Dr. Strangelove, no, although I am familiar with what the movie is about. Avengers Endgame, yes. I think this was a brilliant way to conclude Avengers. I think it was one of their best movies, and since then they haven't really made brilliant movies. I think they're trying to recapture that feel. American Beauty, yes. Good Will Hunting, yes. A really good, feel-good movie. Braveheart, yes. Classic. Again, this is tied into pop culture. Das Boot, no. Princess Monarchy, no. Your Name, no. High and Low, no. Three Idiots, no. Although I have seen bits of this movie. Joker, yes. The acting is very intense, and this style of movie is where they try to make superhero movies feel real, so you could identify with this actor. Once Upon a Time in America, I'm not sure, so I'll say no. Singing in the Rain, I've seen bits, but I'll say no. Capernaum, no. Come and See, no. Requiem for a Dream, yes. I wouldn't watch this movie if you want to relax. It's quite an intense movie. Toy Story 3, yes. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, yes. The Hunt, no. But it seems like an interesting title. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, yes. This is one of the best movies of all time. I think Jim Carrey did such an astounding job. His acting in the movie is amazing. The story in itself as well is just truly unique. This is a really good movie. Kuru, no. A Space Odyssey, no. Reservoir Dogs, yes. This was at the time in the 90s where there was a lot of gangster movies, and this was one of the movies, and it signified that time, that period. So, for example, in our 2020s and late 2010s, we've had an influx of superhero movies. At that time, I feel that there was a lot of gangster movies. The Apartment, no. The Lawrence of Arabia, I've dipped into bits when it's been shown on TV here and there, but I haven't watched it from beginning to end. Incendies, no. Scarface, yes. This will be grouped with the gangster movies. Double Indemnity, no. North by Northwest, I've seen bits. Citizen Kane, again, I've seen bits, but not from beginning to end. Heat, yes. This is a thriller movie, and it has two iconic actors in it. So this is a very good movie. 107, no. Full Metal Jacket, yes. It's quite an intense movie, like Apocalypse Now. Vertigo, no. Up, yes. Very good animated movie, good family movie. Amelie, yes. A very good feel-good movie. Oppenheimer, I actually haven't watched this yet, even though I've read good things about the movie. I haven't watched it yet. A Clockwork Orange, yes. Quite an intense movie. To Kill a Mockingbird, yes. I've also read the book, which is brilliant. A Separation, no. Die Hard, yes. This again is linked with pop culture. It feels that this movie is watched every Christmas. It's a very good action movie. The Sting, no. Indiana Jones, yes. Like Stars on Earth, no. Metropolis, no. Snatch, yes. This was a very good movie by Guy Ritchie in terms of telling a story and using the medium of cinema to tell that story. So you can tell a story in different ways, through a book, through a comic, through animation, through a camera, and the fight scenes are very good. 1917, yes, I think this movie was very good. I liked how it felt like the movie was shot in one continuous shot. So you have some momentum going. It doesn't feel like there are breaks in the movie. So it keeps you going and you have to catch your breath at times. LA Confidential, yes. Bicycle Thieves, no. Downfall, no. Dangle, no. Taxi Driver, rings a bell, but I'm not sure. Hamilton, no. The Wolf of Wall Street, yes. Batman Begins, yes. For a few dollars more, no. Green Book, it rings a bell, but no. Some Like It Hot, no. The Truman Show, yes. And The Truman Show is a type of movie that when you are watching this movie, you are already thinking this is one of the best movies of all time. Just the concept of the movie, the acting, the journey you go along in the movie, and by the end you can justify your thoughts that yes, this belongs in a list of the top 10, top 20 movies. Judgment at Nuremberg, no. The Kid, no. The Father, no. Shutter Island, rings a bell, but I'll say no. All About Eve, no. There Will Be Blood, rings a bell, but I can't confidently say yes. Jurassic Park, yes. This was the first movie I watched in the cinema, and I was completely blown away, and it just grew my love for dinosaurs. I became obsessed with dinosaurs. I think I wanted to become an archaeologist at one point. I memorized hundreds of names of dinosaurs, and this was an amazing movie. Casino, yes. The Sixth Sense is iconic, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away, but it's the journey it takes you on is fantastic. Ran, no. Top Gun Maverick, yes. I'm quite surprised it's made its way into the top 250, but it is quite low down, 145. No Country for Old Men, yes. It's a very intense movie. Pan's Labyrinth, I've heard about this movie but haven't seen it. The Thing, no. Unforgiven, yes. This is a throwback to classic Western movies. A Beautiful Mind, yes. This is a very emotional movie. Kill Bill, yes. In terms of action, it's a very good movie. The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, no. Yojimbo, no. Prisoners, no. Finding Nemo, yes. The Great Escape, no. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, again, I've seen bits but not the whole movie. Howl's Moving Castle, no. The Wild Robot, no. The Elephant Man, no. Dial M for Murder, no. Rashomon, no. Gone with the Wind, I've seen parts. I think it's been impossible not to, because this is such an old movie and it was shown on TV quite a lot, but I haven't seen the whole movie. Chinatown, no. The Secret in Their Eyes, no. Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, yes. Klaus, no. V for Vendetta, yes. Very good action movie. Inside Out, yes. I think this is a very good family movie, and the way they tie in coming of age and dealing with your emotions and animation make it very interesting. Three Billboards, no. Raging Bull, yes. Very intense movie. The Bridge on the River Kwai, no. Trainspotting, yes. Very good performance by Ewan McGregor. This type of movie was not glamorous, and it showed the gritty life of a group of people, and it has a very good story. Catch Me If You Can, yes. If I compared this to Trainspotting, it seems much more glamorous. It's a good adventure movie. Fargo, yes. Warrior, yes. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, yes. Grand Torino, yes. Spider-Man No Way Home, yes. I'm surprised that it's in the top 250. Million Dollar Baby, yes. My Neighbor Totoro, no. Mad Max Fury Road, yes. Ben-Hur, no. Children of Heaven, no. 12 Years a Slave, yes. Barry Lyndon, no. Blade Runner, yes. It's a classic movie. It's quite relatable to today's society in terms of AI. Before Sunrise, no. The Grand Budapest Hotel, it rings a bell, I'm not sure. Hacksaw Ridge, I haven't seen it the whole way through. Dead Poets Society, yes. Gone Girl, no. Demon Slayer, no. Memories of Murder, no. The Name of the Father, no. Monsters Inc., yes. The Gold Rush, no. Ratatouille, I haven't seen the whole way through. Wild Tales, no. How to Train Your Dragon, no. Jaws, yes. A classic movie here. The Deer Hunter, no. Maharaja, no. Sherlock Jr., no. The General, no. Miriam Max, no. On the Waterfront, no. Le Mans 66, no. Wages of Fear, no. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, no. Wild Strawberries, no. The Third Man, no. I have seen this one. Logan at 213. Personally, I would put this higher up. This was a breath of fresh air. I love X-Men, in particular the animated series and the comics. And the X-Men movies were okay. However, Logan really lifted the blanket on the visual aspect. It lifted the cover so you could see the action sequences, which are quite brutal, so it's not suitable for younger children, but it's a very good movie. Rocky, yes. This movie catapulted Sylvester Stallone into stardom. It's a very good movie, very motivational. The Tokyo Story, no. The Big Lebowski, yes. It's a very random movie, which is quite fun. The Seventh Seal, no. Spotlight, no. Room, no. The Terminator, yes. Classic movie. Hotel Rwanda, yes. Platoon, no. Pirates of the Caribbean, yes. Lahane, no. Jai Bim, no. Before Sunset, no. The Best Years of Our Lives, no. The Passion of Joan of Arc, no. The Exorcist, I've seen parts but not the whole way through. The Wizard of Oz, again, but I know what the story is about. And it's quite interesting how movies can make their way into pop culture, but you don't have to had watched the whole movie the whole way through. For example, in The Matrix, they make reference to The Wizard of Oz. In life, in terms of advertising or other movies, they make reference to other movies, so you can know what the movie is about. The Incredibles, yes. Rush, yes. Network, no. Stand By Me, yes. Has a fantastic soundtrack and acting, and it's a brilliant coming of age movie. So this is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Sound of Music, no. Hachi, A Dog's Tale, no. My Father and My Son, no. The Handmaiden, no. To Be or Not to Be, no. The Iron Giant, I've seen parts. The Battle of Algiers, no. Into the Wild, no. A Man Escaped, no. The Grapes of Wrath, no. Groundhog Day, yes. I feel this should be higher up. It's a very funny movie. Amours Perros, no. The Help, no. Rebecca, no. The Silent Voice, no. Drisham, no. So there we have it, the 250 movies of all time. And if you are counting, you can let me know how many you have seen. I'm going to do a quick calculation here. So I have seen 107 out of the top 250. It would be interesting to know how many you have watched. In the future, I will cover some more of my favorite movies that I recommend to help you improve your English. But today I just wanted to look at the top 250. Do you agree with the top 10? What are some of your favorite movies and why do you like them? For example, I love The Matrix because of the action, the story, the special effects. And there are certain movies which you rewatch, and there are certain movies that you don't really want to watch too many times. For example, Cinema Paradiso, I wouldn't want to watch it too many times because I want to keep that special feeling that I had when I first watched the movie. So movies, I think, are a brilliant way not only to improve your English, but also to work your imagination. They can get rid of stress for a while, can take you to another place. And so when you have to come back to the real world, you're able to feel more relaxed. They can motivate you. They can inspire you. So I think movies are fantastic. Now you have TV shows, TV series, which are different to movies. So a movie, they only have an hour and a half to 3 hours to tell a story. But a TV show, they can go more in depth into the character. And that's something that I will talk about in another podcast as well. To help you with your English learning, I have created a fantastic ebook. It's completely free to download, and you will find the link to it in my description. So remember, let me know what are some of your favorite movies. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you next time. Thank you and bye-bye. Hello friend, welcome to Learn English with British Harry. My name is Harry. I'm a British English teacher. I was born in London and I'm a native speaker. What is the significance of that? Well, firstly, being a British English teacher means that I have taught thousands of students from all over the world, ranging from beginner to advanced. Through these thousands of hours of teaching students, I have learnt patterns and ways to help my students really improve their level of English. Some of my students have been able to secure higher paying jobs, have traveled to different countries, have passed examinations, and really have enriched their lives with improving their English. And being a native speaker means that I have a deep understanding not only of vocabulary and grammar, but really understanding language in context. And this means being able to break the rule sometimes when you need to. So this way you can really understand the other person and make yourself understood in different situations. Now, I find it really helpful to look at news articles. And today we're going to look at an article about TikTok. So let's have a look at this article here. So this says TikTok goes offline in the US hours before ban due to come in. So this is about TikTok being banned in the US. Now, if we look at the picture, we can see a notification. So the notification says, sorry, TikTok isn't available right now. A law banning TikTok has been enacted in the US. Unfortunately, that means you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office. Please stay tuned. TikTok has gone offline in the US hours before a new law banning the platform was due to come into effect. So we have this word banning. Banning means not allowing something officially. And we also have a phrasal verb here, gone offline. So this means to stop being connected to the internet or become unavailable online. So for example, you could say the Wi-Fi has gone offline, or I am going offline. So this means that you won't be available online. A message appearing on the app for US users said a law banning TikTok had been enacted, meaning you can't use TikTok for now. Enacted means to put something into action, especially to make something law. For example, the council enacted a new law to improve traffic safety. The new regulations were enacted last year to protect the environment. The company enacted a policy to support remote working. So this law has been put into action. So something has happened. So a law banning TikTok had been enacted. Here we have the past perfect tense. So we have had and the past participle, the third form of the verb. The past perfect tense shows that one action happened before another action or specific time in the past. So we have action 1, the law was enacted. Then we have action 2, the platform went offline. So to show the earlier action, we use the past perfect, so had been enacted. The simple past, went offline, is used for the action that occurred afterwards. But remember, these actions still happened in the past, just one after the other. Now, some example sentences are, by the time the train arrived, I had already bought my ticket. So buying the ticket happened first, and then the train arrived. She realized she had left her phone at home when she arrived at work. So leaving the phone happened before arriving at work. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office, it read. It comes after the social media platform warned it would go dark on Sunday unless the outgoing Biden administration gave assurances the ban will not be enforced. We have an interesting idiom here, so to go dark. This means to stop operating, communicating, or being visible. So this is often temporarily. President-elect Donald Trump has said he would most likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve from a ban once he takes office on Monday. So a reprieve is a delay or a temporary break. Users reported the app had also been removed from both Apple and Google's US stores, and TikTok.com was not showing videos. The 90-day extension is something that will most likely be done because it's appropriate, Trump told NBC News on Saturday. If I decide to do that, I'll probably announce it on Monday. The White House said that it was up to the incoming administration to take action. We see no reason for TikTok or other companies to take actions in the next few days before the Trump administration takes place on Monday. Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement. The Supreme Court on Friday upheld a law passed in April last year banning the app in the US unless its China-based parent company ByteDance sold the platform by Sunday, which it has not done. TikTok has argued that the law violates free speech protections for its 170 million users in the country. So violates, what does this mean? Violates means to break or fail to follow a law, rule, agreement, or someone's rights. So TikTok is saying that the law, it breaks free speech protection for its users. And we have 170 million users. So this is not just a high number, this is a huge number of people that will be affected. TikTok has argued that the law violates free speech protections. So the present perfect tense is used to describe actions or events that happened at an unspecified time in the past, but are still relevant to the present moment. So the structure is has, have, plus the past participle, the third form of the verb. The use of has argued shows that TikTok made its argument in the past, but this action is still important or connected to the current situation. It does not specify when the argument was made, as the focus is on the present relevance of the statement. So if we think about using the present perfect tense, when can we use this? Well, we can use this with actions continuing into the present. For example, she has lived in London for 5 years. So she started living in London 5 years ago, and she is still living there. We have completed actions with present relevance. For example, I have finished my homework. So the homework is done, and this is important now. We also have experiences up to now. For example, we have visited France several times. So we're focusing on the experience, not when it happened. After the ruling, TikTok's chief executive, Chao Zi-Chu, appealed to Trump, thanking him for his commitment to work with us to find a solution. Mr. Chu is expected to attend Trump's inauguration on Monday. What is an inauguration? This is a formal ceremony to start something, especially when someone begins an important job or role. In the hours leading up to the social media platform going offline, content creators had been posting videos to say goodbye to their followers. Creator Nicole Bloomgarden told the BBC that not being on TikTok would result in a significant salary cut. Another user, Erica Thompson, said educational content on the platform would be the biggest loss for the community. TikTok users met with a message earlier on Saturday that said the law would force us to make our services temporarily unavailable. We're working to restore our service in the US as soon as possible. So this was the article. We went through a few vocabulary and grammar points. Now, next, I'm going to read the article from beginning to end for you to help with your pronunciation, and then we will dive into this article a bit more together, and you can let me know what you think about the article. So, TikTok has gone offline in the US hours before a new law banning the platform was due to come into effect. A message appearing on the app for US users said a law banning TikTok had been enacted, meaning you can't use TikTok for now. We are fortunate that President Trump has indicated that he will work with us on a solution to reinstate TikTok once he takes office, it read. It comes after the social media platform warned it would go dark on Sunday unless the outgoing Biden administration gave assurances the ban will not be enforced. President-elect Donald Trump has said he would most likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve from a ban once he takes office on Monday. Users reported the app had been removed from both Apple and Google's US stores, and TikTok.com was not showing videos. The 90-day extension is something that will most likely be done because it's appropriate, Trump told NBC News on Saturday. I'll decide to do that. I'll probably announce it on Monday. The White House said it was up to the incoming administration to take action. We see no reason for TikTok or other companies to take actions in the next few days before the Trump administration takes office on Monday, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement. The Supreme Court on Friday upheld the law passed in April last year, banning the app in the US unless its China-based parent company ByteDance sold the platform by Sunday, which it has not done. TikTok has argued that the law violates free speech protections for its 170 million users in the country. After the ruling, TikTok's chief executive, Chao Zhi-Chu, appealed to Trump, thanking him for his commitment to work with us to find a solution. Mr. Chu is expected to attend Trump's inauguration on Monday. In the hours leading up to the social media platform going offline, content creators had been posting videos to say goodbye to their followers. Creator Nicole Bloomgarden told the BBC that not being on TikTok would result in a significant salary cut. Another user, Erica Thompson, said educational content on the platform would be the biggest loss for the community. TikTok users were met with a message early on Saturday that said the law would force us to make our services temporarily unavailable. We're working to restore our service in the US as soon as possible. Brilliant. So if we have a look at the article and try to summarize the article before we go into the interesting debate questions. Well, for me, it feels that TikTok is, if we have a look at the picture here, they have hope that this ban will be lifted. They are stating that, unfortunately, you cannot use TikTok. They're saying that the ban has happened. It's been enacted. There's nothing that they could have done to prevent this. And it's just a sad situation that you won't be able to use TikTok. But they are hopeful that once Trump is inaugurated and begins his term of presidency, that he will reinstate TikTok. So this message here, I feel, is written in a way to keep users. They don't want their users of the app to go to another competition, to start using a different app, or to uninstall their particular app. So they are updating the users and keeping the the idea of TikTok fresh in people's memory, because it may be some time, even if TikTok is restored, there's going to be some significant damage, because it gives other people, other applications, an opportunity to steal these users and entice them into using their particular app. So TikTok, understandably, is very concerned about this. Why? Because they have a huge base of users. 170 million people are using TikTok. So they do not want to lose these users to other applications. Now, let's have a look here at the debate questions. Okay, so before we have a look at these debate questions, it will be interesting to know from yourself, do you use TikTok, or have you used TikTok in the past? If you have used it or do use it, what do you use it for? Is it for educational content? Is it for entertainment? Are you using it to pass the time? Also, does it affect you in any way? If TikTok is banned, how does it affect your life? Now, the article talked about income loss, and I feel sorry for those people that are making an income on TikTok, because if we look at the situation of the world with the cost of living crisis, everything has increased in price. Your rent, your mortgage, food, your utilities, everything has increased, and salaries haven't really increased. So everything is difficult. And for people that are making some money on TikTok, now that they won't be making that money, it will greatly impact their lives. Right, let's get into the fun stuff, and we have the debate questions. I love debate questions because it gives you an opportunity to really have fun with English and critical thinking. The first question is, should a government have the power to ban social media apps? Why or why not? Well, I've left this blank, so it gives you an opportunity to think about some ideas. So should a government have the power to ban social media apps? Well, let's think about the pros and the cons. Firstly, they should, if the social media apps are affecting people in a negative way. If it is damaging to people or the country, then the government should have the power to ban. Now, why should they not? Well, they should not, because people should have free speech. People should be able to express themselves and have the option to choose what social media app they use. Being in a nanny state takes away people's freedom to choose what they want to read, what social media apps they want to use. So it should be their choice. So yes, to protect national security or prevent misuse of personal data. So this is an interesting one if we think about national security. Now, how could a social media app affect national security or prevent misuse of personal data? I can see how the app could collect data about you, so what you are looking at, what content you're interacting with, and I assume that the more data you have about this, the easier it would be to potentially manipulate you into seeing more of the same or different content. So I think people's opinion is dictated by what they see, what they hear. So if you are surrounded by information and content that isn't really helpful, it could be damaging, I think that can really affect people. In terms of no, it limits free speech and could harm businesses and creators. So the government shouldn't ban because, yes, it limits free speech. It could harm businesses and creators. Like I said before, making money from social media apps can really change a person's life. By taking away that source of income, it can really affect their ability to lead just day-to-day living. And I also think these creators and these businesses, they're creating content that is of value. It's helping people, even if it's silly, entertaining videos. People that are consuming that, it may lower their stress. So maybe they've had a hard day and they're just scrolling through social media app, and it may be an inspiring story or maybe a silly video, and it makes the person laugh. It distracts them from their stressful lives, and then once they stop using the app, they feel less stressed, so they can go and tackle all the issues that they have in their life. I think the problem comes when there's an inability to separate from social media, and it's also when it starts to affect how you view life, because very often on social media it's not the truth. People present a image of themselves which is carefully controlled, and it's controlled in such a way that you don't know if it's authentic or not. And if you're comparing yourself with another person that you see on social media, it can affect your mental health, because now you're striving to live up to a certain expectation, a certain ideal, which that isn't even real. So I think understanding this, taking social media with a pinch of salt, even if you're using social media to keep in contact with friends, what did people do before social media? They would call their friends, they would see their friends in real life. So to an extent, how much do you need to keep in contact with people in terms of seeing pictures of their daily life every single day? Is this helpful? Well, to some people it could be, if they don't see people that often, and it's a way to keep in contact with friends and family. Okay, so does banning TikTok violate free speech rights? Yes, because you are banning an app which allows people to express themselves. Now, I think there is a line that can be crossed if you are posting offensive content, then that is crossing the line. It's the same as in the real world. If you say offensive remarks, that's crossing the line and unacceptable. So it's the same thing. So I think it depends on what type of content it is. So fundamentally, banning TikTok does violate free speech. It doesn't violate free speech if, again, we've had a look at the first comment, if it's if it could potentially harm the country or national security, then you could say that it does not violate free speech. Okay, so let's have a look here. So TikTok argues it does, because it impacts users' ability to express themselves on the platform. However, others might say the ban focuses on security risks and not free speech. What are the pros and cons of banning an app like TikTok? Well, pros of banning TikTok means that you have complete control over what people in the country view. So now you can dictate to people what content they see, which can be good for the country because it means that you can, I guess, foster an environment of nationalism and trying to get people more interested in content that's created with an American company. So it could be any particular country. So if the country itself created the app, it's promoting the country, the origins of the country. It's similar to products like Apple, which a lot of the products are not even made in the country, but it has a strong American connection. It's, if you are selling an iPhone to someone in another country, that person knows the iPhone comes from America. So because the app is from a different country, if you are banning it, you are then trying to foster companies from within the country to create similar apps. Now, the con of banning an app like TikTok, there are lots of cons, I think. I think firstly, you are setting a dangerous precedent. So by banning TikTok, other companies would be scared that the same thing would happen to them. So now the country, the president can decide if an app, a social media app, can be banned or not. And that's quite dangerous if we think about a democracy and free speech, and people should be able to choose what applications they use and interact with. And also the aspect of people losing income. So people would have spent a long time, many months or even many years, creating their business, creating content, engaging with people. It takes a lot of creative effort and mental energy to create content. So now, with that just being wiped out, I think these people will be in a state of mourning because all of their hard work is just now gone down the drain. So that's incredibly sad. Okay, so yes, protects national security, prevents data misuse, limits foreign influence. So again, limits foreign influence. But yes, I think sometimes foreign influence can be a good thing. I think it's good not to be isolated. I think the UK and London in particular is a wonderful place because of its diversity. You interact with many different people, you learn about different cultures, and I think by being isolated, and it means that you are less aware, have less education about other cultures, and it forces you to make compromises and being able to interact with other people. So cons: harms creators' income, limits free speech, impacts cultural exchange. So this is an interesting word here. So cultural exchange. Again, I think it makes the world a better place when people can experience and appreciate different cultures, and not just to think that my culture is the only one and it is the best. I think understanding different cultures leads to people being more understanding and accepting of different people. At the end of the day, we are all human. We are all in the same boat. We are just trying to make the most of our days and our life. So by banning this, it impacts improving your understanding of different cultures. So this was an interesting article. What do you think about TikTok being banned? Do you think that it is such a big thing or not? Also, do you think that TikTok will be reintroduced once Trump takes power? It's interesting to see. I wonder if Trump would have any say in how TikTok is run if it comes back. Now, if we think about knowledge equals power, and also information equals power. So if you're able to control information and what people consume, that enables you to dictate what people know about. So that's the same thing with having understanding of different cultures. If you are able to see more of the world and understand the world, it opens your mind and you're able to think about things in a different way, question things, question if something is fair, thinking about things like justice as well. So let me know, what do you think about this article? It's quite interesting to see what will happen next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye-bye.